Welcome, everyone, to Office Hours. I'm your host, Stuart Newsom, and our topic for today is a session that we're going to talk about protecting revenue through EMR, Clearinghouse, and AI transitions. Sounds like a lot of fun. So, just in a few words, this conversation is about how organizations keep revenue moving while making major system changes. And we've all gone through some major system changes. I think everyone can have some certain nightmares about that, such as EMR upgrades. Maybe you're trying to move to a clearinghouse. Maybe you're trying to get AI into the mix. So to help us navigate this, we're joined by Bo Bowman, who's Vice President of our strategic accounts here at Infinix. Bo works very closely, with a lot of healthcare organizations that are actively navigating the system transitions, onboarding, operational changes, have done so, probably wish they hadn't, and as he'll probably allude to a little bit. And he has really that front row view, if you will, of where revenue really does get disrupted when it shows up, and how to kind of help prevent that disruption. So, Bo, how's it going today?
Hey, great, Stuart. Thanks for having me. Really excited about the topic.
Awesome, awesome. So, during this session, I just want to give a brief detail, kind of a snapshot of what we're going to talk about, and that is, where revenue continuity most often breaks down during those system transitions that I was talking about earlier. Why clearinghouse enrollment and payer setup can quietly delay cash, sometimes not so quietly. How integration expectations may differ from when you signed up and had it all planned out to the reality of actually going through it. And then where AI helps stabilize operations, but also how AI can also introduce some blind spots if teams are not paying attention. So as always, we're going to go over a Q&A session at the end. So please put in your questions in the Q&A section of Zoom here. I welcome comments. So if you have any insights into what we're talking about today, please share your perspective as well. And we may read some of those off as time allows. I do want Britt, if there's one thing, it looks like we may not be in the right focus, but we'll continue with the webinar. Just want to make sure we're capturing, who is speaking here. It could be on my end though, but we'll just continue here. So Bo, you ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
All right. So I have a few questions for you as always. And I know you have the answers, but we're seeing many organizations make EMR upgrades, maybe even wanting to do some clearinghouse changes and making some AI and automation decisions all at the same time. And it seems to me that, and we talked about this when we were prepping, it seems to be a case of FOMO, right? They're kind of fear of missing out. They're fearful of what else could I be doing, and they're so quick to jump in. But from your perspective, where does revenue continuity most often start to break down during those transitions?
Yeah. A good origin of this discussion too is whether it's the kind of the FOMO conversation or, hey, our local hospital reached out to us and said that they'd be happy to bring us onto their EMR, or, hey, I went to a conference, right? I went to an HFM, potentially reducing, right, our own overhead in our office, or maybe our cost to collect, or one of those important, kind of business ratios that we watch as we figure out, okay, how is our kind of medical health of our practice, our financial health, how's it going to work from month to month, right? And in a world of unfortunate declining reimbursements, you got to be very careful about these decisions because we never want to delay cash. We never want to delay collections. But at the same time, right, it does feel like the payers are putting us in a situation where they need more. They need more documentation. They need more codes. They need more accuracy on medical necessity. We've gotten into that on other office hours. So all of this does get, an administrator or maybe an ambulatory surgery center group or whoever it may be to a position where like, well, what can the system do for us, right? And that's that's really that becomes the exciting part, right? Oh, we've been using the same EMR for 9 years, and we've been with this kind of off-brand clearinghouse for these 5 years, and payments are flowing. So, but we know we've got AR issues. We know so you finally get to this decision, and so there's this excitement around it. What I've noticed is that sometimes the excitement kind of, if you will, blocks out what is actually a very difficult, ramp, onboard, and really roadmap to what is going to be your new EMR, your new clearinghouse, your new streamlined, AI-driven, system to improve, the bottom line that you have now. So at Infinix, we've taken from years and years of project experience and years of coming alongside of clients to help them through EMR transitions, to help them through clearinghouse changes, to help them through bank changes, to help them through anything that touches their revenue cycle. We've really kind of landed on, 3 or 4 core things. And that's one, you got to have a real solid business case for why you're going to do this, right? There needs to be a return on the investment. 2, you need to have buy-in, buy-in, buy-in. Say it 3 times. Doctors have to be on board. Administrators have to be on board. Any other group, maybe it's a PE-backed group, maybe it's some other type of, community organized funded group, right? Everybody has to be on board, because if there ever is a cash delay or if there ever is a break, all of those stakeholders are going to want to know what's going on, right?
Right.
So we got to have buy-in, and then the third thing is you got to have a roadmap, right? You got to have a roadmap that gets published, that is legible, that people understand, that has very specific milestones in it, dates, Gantt charts, things to follow, right? Full documentation on the roadmap. So, between those kind of 3 or 4 core things, those are all very important leading up to, making this decision. And then, to your point, moving through all of those steps, it can be peaks and valleys, right? There's times when it feels like, hey, we're at the top of the mountain here. We're got a couple more things to do, and then we're going to hit the go live. And then, 2 days beforehand, there might be access issues. The claims test could have gone poorly, right? All of the doctors that are supposed to have certain access to certain transcription modes may need to be retrained, right? So you got to kind of build in. Got to build in a little bit of margin, build in a little bit of delay time to be able to avoid, what could happen is this kind of other unfortunate phenomena that we see quite a bit. And it's just like, you know what, let's just go live and we'll fix it afterwards, right? So we've seen that, right? We've seen that with EMR transitions. We've seen it with clearinghouse changes. We've seen it with bank changes. We've seen it with fee schedule uploads, right? New year, 2026, January, whether you're on any of the major brand name EMRs or hospital EMRs, a lot of changes from Medicare this year. So we're going to go and upload a new fee schedule, right? That in itself, right, when the RCM process kicks back in on the new fee schedule, makes your book of business look different than last year. So did you prep for that, right? Have you talked with your accountant about, hey, the numbers may look a little bit different? So much to consider there.
So I do think, but I think you froze a little bit there at the end, but we got the gist, much to consider there. So you're probably waiting on me to ask the next question.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
No worries, no worries. So talking about clearinghouses specifically, because I know with everything that happened a couple of years ago with change, there's been a lot of people, oh, wait a minute, we need to make a transition here. So let's talk a little bit about, clearinghouse enrollment and EFT setups. They sound very straightforward on paper, but there's a lot of moving parts, but they can frequently cause delays, especially in revenue. So if the claim's not going out and getting processed, you're not getting paid. So what typically goes wrong during enrollment, and why does it have such an outsized impact on cash flow?
So the big piece there that we've seen, especially over the last kind of year and a half, is the enrollment process. A lot of the big clearinghouses today, whether it be TriZetto, Waystar, Novalon, whoever you're maybe working with, they do have AI embedded in their enrollment tool. One of the particular clearinghouses that we work with has a real nice tool where the only manual real process is that either we as the RCM vendor assisting the client or the client themselves, basically uploads a document of their major payers, right? And associated NPI numbers. And then from there, the clearinghouse actually has an automated tool where it goes out and updates on every one of the major portals all the necessary information to get that group enrolled through the new clearinghouse on that set of payers, right? From there, there's some mapping that goes on that we will typically help the client with. And then from there, there's the queuing up of the claim integration and then the submittal of the batch test claims. Now, I just in 30 seconds kind of rolled through that, but there's a lot of steps in there, right? And if you don't test some of those steps prior to your go live, if you don't, if you go back to your doctors and say, hey, we're going to have the clearinghouse switched over and our payments to cash are going to go down from like maybe 28 days down to like 15 days. So this new investment we've made in the clearinghouse is going to improve our days to cash. Well, if the enrollments didn't get done in time leading up to when you're going to turn off your old clearinghouse and turn on your new clearinghouse, to keep it very simple and in layman's terms, then you're going to get stuck and you're literally going to have your payments start to show up either via a check in the mail, which is kind of the old school way of doing things. And then you land in this kind of no man's land, kind of this zone here for 30, 60, 90 days, where your payments are not electronically funneling through the new clearinghouse to your bank. And now you're tracking both clearinghouses, right? So you can get yourself in a real cash delay if you don't work closely with the new clearinghouse that you're choosing, closely with your bank, testing those batches, testing everything to make sure each payer is flowing the way it's supposed to within the new clearinghouse. After you get all that testing done and get the sampling done, and you've had your own kind of internal meeting that looks like the team's ready to go and we're going to make this switch, then you can go back, right, to the former clearinghouse, continue to work down whatever may be there and stop the flow of payments through there to the new one. What we've seen before is that either the clearinghouse or a representative at the clearinghouse, somebody that, has all of the best intentions may say something like, oh, in general, it takes us between 30 and 45 days to finish all of your enrollments, and we should have you back up and running with all of the payers by said date. Well, then we go and we make all these other changes, right? We all the way down like to how we schedule and which payers that those patients have. For instance, if we know Aetna takes the longest, then you know what? We may need to adjust our schedule for how many Aetna patients we're seeing in that month, because we know there's going to be potentially a delay in payments, and there could even be a denial that occurs until the enrollment is completed, right? So just a lot of planning steps that Infinix can come along and help you with. Again, making that roadmap. Everybody has buy-in, kind of going back to my original message of, you got to have buy-in and you got to have a roadmap.
Right, exactly. So, during evaluations, integration is often, treated as a checkbox. You kind of alluded to this a little bit already, but, once implementation begins, where do those expectations around integration most commonly fall apart? Because everybody, as I think you stated it earlier, everybody has this dream model of how it's going to work, but it never goes according to plan, right? So, how does that affect revenue operations?
Couple challenges. I didn't just mute, right? You can hear me?
Yeah.
So couple challenges there. There's a steady level of collections that come in, really from the months of March, really flowing through December, right? And then we get into the new year and a portion of the payment starts to hit the deductible. So we see the collections lower down a little bit in January and February. So again, there's peaks and valleys throughout your annual cycle of the collections coming in that you generate out of your system. So you start to build all of your other practice business and practice mechanics around that, right? So, hey, we know we're going to have a big month in September and in October if we're an elective surgical practice, right? So then we're going to plan some stuff in those months. Maybe it's a new capital outlay, right? Maybe it's a new building. Maybe it's bringing on some new doctors, right? So here you go. You've built your whole kind of next business maneuver, right? Around, ultimately when your revenue cycle is having some of its peaks during the year. So if you were to time, if you were to unfortunately have some poor timing there and choose to switch out an EMR, switch out a clearinghouse, switch out a bank, move to a new fee schedule during some of those same months where you're expecting some of those high payments, it can be detrimental to the practice. Maybe the group was expected to bring in $2 million in cash each month for October, November, December to finish out the year. But summertime is kind of when you guys kicked off your new change. Again, whether that's clearinghouse, EMR, or whatever it is, everybody said it would take 30 to 60 days. And now here you are 5 months into it. 3 of the milestones were missed. There wasn't a clear roadmap in place. And we were expecting that normal kind of $2 million a month cash, kind of steady stream to hit. And we're only at 1.1 million. We're only at 1.2 million. So now we're missing $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 on those. Hey, for the last 3 years in a row, those months have all been about the same on the collection cycle. And now we've got to back off some of those other plans that we had. Again, whether it was bringing on a new provider, a new capital outlay, a new investment in a new piece of equipment. So, really these what seem to be not major decisions on what EMR are we going to move to, what clearinghouse are we going to move to. Oh, this bank is not allowing us, all the access we need, so we're going to switch banks. I mean, just when you do that, you got a huge EFT, challenge that you have to reprogram. So a lot of things there that you just really need to, take slow and take into account. And again, have buy-in and have a roadmap with milestones that are achievable, to get you to a situation that everybody looks at as tenable and not as disastrous.
Oh, awesome. And then you mentioned this as well. You brought up automation. You brought up, some AI functionality. Organizations often assume AI and automation will stabilize things during system change. I see it all over the place. I think expectations are really high. But in practice, where does AI-driven automation generally help protect revenue, and where can it create those blind spots if teams aren't careful?
So right off the bat, there's still a lot of manual practice that goes on in the form of getting the right data loaded to the right field in your system at the right time, right? So it kind of goes back to the old adage of, garbage in, garbage out, right? So at Infinix and really in general, as you're kind of modernizing, if you will, either your medical practice, again, your ambulatory surgery setting, outpatient setting, really, what we're looking for is to reduce the amount of manual error, right? So if the system that you're looking at moving to, then that's something to get excited about. Now, being able to implement, right, and use that AI appropriately that system is offering, or again, working with a group like Infinix to see if there's an integration that can occur to reduce the amount of manual work and have a machine learning process that can repeat that task over and over again and put it on some sort of auto run, then that's a really cool opportunity. Again, though, got to have buy-in to do that. You got to set a roadmap for what information is going to be loaded into that interface. And you've got to have the right people and the right talent on board to make sure those interfaces are set up correctly. Because again, if we're loading the wrong information into the interface, then it's going to feed, right? It's going to feed that task. It's going to feed that processing the wrong information. And here we are setting up claims with the wrong information again that could potentially go out through your new clearinghouse and get denied or rejected right off the bat. So all for trying to take advantage of the various true automation functions out there, but really take a close look at, okay, how many manual processes do I have in my revenue cycle today? And then I'm looking at this new EMR or this clearinghouse is promising that they can do this. And if that's going to reduce those manual processes and give you something that you can measure against a quality target, for instance, then 100%. We think that's a smart investment as long as there's some quality checks. And again, you test it before you go live.
Nice. So, and then looking back at those transitions, whether it's manual processes, whether it's some type of automation, there's certain transitions that are always going to struggle. So, what timing and sequencing mistakes do you see most often, especially with EMR changes, and even clearinghouse migrations, even where AI even overlaps?
Yeah, so two big ones stick out there, right? And so that's data movement from the old system to the new system. That's a big issue that we deal with on a real regular basis. The team, the doctors, the administrators are used to seeing their claims information, their clinical information in their old system. And then when it either gets transferred, uploaded, et cetera, to the new system, it doesn't look quite the same, right? So how the data lives in the new system, and then training, most importantly, are all the right staff trained on how to look at that data in the new system and what to do with that. So those are the two. Those both of those seem really basic, but we see that all the time. We see the new data get uploaded, right? So we don't. So when Miss Johnson comes in, she's not a new patient. We already see her in our system. Or again, if it's a clearinghouse change, we used to work rejections one way. Well, in the new system, there's going to be some automation, and any kickouts are going to be over under a particular report. Well, again, if the team that was working, right, if your middle end revenue cycle team was working those rejections one way, and now there's a new workflow, something that we'll do at Infinix is we'll come in and we'll put a whole SOP behind that, right? So we'll write up a 20, 30 page SOP that's step by step that says, hey, to work rejections, you're going to take these steps in your new system. To work denials, post clearinghouse, and you're going to go try and exhaust that claim again. You're going to follow the SOP for these major, kind of points, if you will. So again, kind of doing these things, again, with a roadmap and with a protocol and a cadence is clearly a better strategy than just say, hey, we're going to move to the new EMR, figure it out from there. And, unfortunately, we still hear a lot of that, even in this day of, our clients and our administrator, peers and colleagues out there trying to modernize their systems.
Nice. So one last question for you. But before revenue is actually visibly impacted, because a lot of times you don't really realize until it's too late. What are some early warning signals that teams really should be watching for during go live, maybe even weeks immediately after, to catch those issues before they even compound on each other?
Rates in a month, right? So, at Infinix, what we'll do is we'll lay out a business day by business day plan for the first 90 days of your transition. And we'll have a target for every day that we're supposed to be either achieving certain amount of claim generation based on the volume that's out there, or a certain amount of charges based on that's out there. If it's a clearinghouse changeover, then it's going to be an encounter count, right? Hey, we got 700 claims uploaded and sent out. The normal pace is 850. Okay, well, we're not quite at that normal pace, but for day 1 and 2, the counts look pretty good. So basic stuff like tracking the metrics of your RCM cycle, again, what you're generating, what's getting loaded up, what's going out to the payers. That's all well and good. There's then just this kind of automatic thought that we have as humans that, oh, well, all that's going to cycle through and our payments are going to pick right back up. Not necessarily, right? Unfortunately, we've been in situations where, hey, you're supposed to be, bringing in whatever it might be, 50, 60, $100,000 a day in electronic funds transfers, but the clearinghouse switchover or the new bank access hasn't been completed yet. And there's still either 2 more trainings or 2 more approvals that need to occur. We went ahead and went live, and now we're missing a couple of $100,000, and there's only 6 days to go in the month or something like that. So we hear that conversation, unfortunately, real regularly. And again, that's why we highly advise that you have buy-in before you do this. You have a sound return on investment of what you're going to be doing, and you have a clear roadmap, again, with a Gantt chart, with dates, with milestones that you're going to achieve as you go up, to include, hey, this is our run rate. And hey, you know what? It's okay to predict that we may take another 30 days, another 60 days to get back to our run rate. But again, that needs to be advertised, that needs to be published. All of those stakeholders need to be in the loop and understand that, hey, there could be some little bit of turbulence on the way here as we, kind of make this change in our system. But, oh, by the way, our days to cash used to be 28. Now it's going to be 13. It's going to take about 90 days to get that system going. And again, as long as you've told everybody and everybody's in the loop, then it's a great experience. However, what we've seen really in the last couple of years is, folks maybe putting a little too much trust into, some of the implementations that they've been told will go super smooth based on, hey, 6 slides in a PowerPoint deck that the vendor sent you, right? But like at the end of the day, what does that roadmap look like? Do you have the right engineers? Do you have the right people working on your interface? Have you tested the interface? All of those kind of important things have to happen ahead of time so you don't run into, again, what could be some disastrous early onset issues that you have to kind of go backwards and fix.
Yeah, nice. Well, that's all the questions that I have, but we are going to turn over to some audience questions. We have a few more minutes to kind of address some of these. So the first one here, Asibo, is from someone asking or stating, we're planning a major system change and leadership expects automation to carry most load. So I think you've covered some of this maybe already, but how do we realistically set expectations so we don't assume revenue is protected when it isn't?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So again, a lot of the EMRs, a lot of the clearinghouses, a lot of the new modern processes that we're seeing get implemented do immediately promise, hey, all of those manual things that you were doing to get the right clinical, demographic, and insurance data loaded up to start properly the RCM process, those manual processes are going to quote unquote go away. But again, in every single one of these systems, there is a demonstration interface. There is an opportunity for the team to get in and train. There is an opportunity to have quality and audit checks set up right before you go live. So again, at Infinix, what we'll do is we'll break it down by section, right? So we'll talk through all of the documentation that's needed to properly get the claim generated, right? Patient demographics, insurance information, everything you need. And then we'll learn and we'll help the client learn and train on that, right? Get garbage in, garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
When we auto generate that claim and it goes out and uses the scrubber that we've, kind of paid our new EMR to use, is it scrubbing that claim the right way? Or is it picking up on, some kind of normal or unusual circumstance in which this particular doctor uses this particular code for that procedure, but the other doctor uses a similar code? And the claim scrubber may see that and go, oh, well, this way's right and that way's wrong. Mm-hmm. Nobody's right or wrong. It just depends on what happened to that patient on that episode at that time. And we've got to go back and either work with the EMR vendor, work with the claim scrubber, and say, hey, this is the standard. We're going to load in the standard. And that's what we expect the scrubber to follow each time. We've seen that a lot with the modern systems. We've been hired to just go and work all of the kickouts, all of the rejections, and all of the denials that a lot of these auto scrubbers are generating, right? So not only do we go do that manual work at Infinix and fix those, we'll also come alongside you and help set up that automation the right way. And we've got some really strong onboarding and transition folks that have deep experience in multiple systems to get that done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've had a lot of experience with scrubbers, and I can tell you that that is the case.
That's awesome.
At the end of the day, that's still a machine, and it's looking at logic.
Mm-hmm.
The variations can differ. So one more question from the audience. So if revenue starts slowing after go live, how do you determine whether the issue is enrollment delays, payer setup, integration gaps, or automation behavior without losing weeks of cash? Sound there was like a long laundry list of how can you tell what's the issue?
We kind of work backwards. That's kind of a simple answer to the question. But again, we're going to watch the EFTs, right? We're going to watch the payments that are coming in and, either hitting your bank log, coming out of your clearinghouse. running those reports, comparing them up against to your run rate of what you're already at. And then from there, is it a payer issue? You know what? We got all of our Medicare and Medicare Advantage payments, but we're not seeing anything flow from Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare, right? So that immediately tells us, hey, we've got an enrollment issue with United. At least at Infinix, we'll work closely with your enrollment people, and our enrollment people will go back. And if it was a clearinghouse issue, and hey, maybe 12 of the 150 providers got loaded onto that United plan, but there's another 80 in the queue that are still needing to be enrolled, or that the delegated credentialing on that one didn't go through like we thought. And so we've got this, whatever it is, 800 claims sitting out there with United that haven't processed yet. And not to pick on United, but it can happen to any one of the commercial payers if the enrollment wasn't done correctly. So again, we're going to kind of work backwards from the payment cycle, and then we're going to look at the payer, see where the mishap was, see where the stop, the block, the gap was, and then start kind of the repair and the question and answering and fixing process from there.
Awesome. Good deal. Good deal. Well, that's it. There's no more questions from the audience unless someone wants to drop something in last minute, but want to thank you, Bo, for joining. Is always absolutely terrific. We'll have you again for sure. You're a veteran of office hours, one of the OGs, so to speak. So really appreciate you being on today. So, and I also want to thank everyone else for attending today. Want to encourage you to go to our website at infinix.com, where you can see some articles, case studies, and other insights, many of which what Bo just discussed, and then some. Just about anything RCM. You can also listen to our podcast at Revenue Cycle Optimized, where we have other anything and all things RCM is what we discuss on that podcast. Till next time, we'll see you the next office hours, and hope you all have a safe and wonderful week.